Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to Celebrate with L.A. Williams. My name is L.A. Williams, and I am in deep, deep gratitude and respect and joy. Today, we are celebrating the one and only Miss Kelley Nicole Girod. Oh, Kelley! Oh my God, Kelley. Okay. I'm gonna keep myself together.
Or don't.
Kelley.
It's okay.
Or don't. Thank you for that invitation. Oh my God, I'm so excited. And I will tell y'all in a few seconds why I'm so excited. But before I do, Kelley, I want to ask your permission to kind of tell you and the audience what Celebrate is and what it means to me, if that's all right with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So this series is a manifestation of a moment I had as a very young theater student. Kelley, I was like a teenager still. I was a freshman, my first year at Alabama State University, and I had walked over to the theater building at the recommendation of some of my friends, and I went to see a show called Phaedra by Jean Racine, directed by Dr. Tommy Stewart, one of the professors in the building. Right? I know, that was my first experience. Oh, drama, language, costumes, people dying on stage. It was everything. And it was truly that experience for me when I think back that just completely changed my life and made me say, I want to be in the theater. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But the other thing that happened, Kelley, during that weekend of me seeing the show back to back to back, because I went to every performance after that, was that I kept feeling this overwhelming desire to go and find everybody involved in that production and say thank you to them for changing my life. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for giving me something to like hope for and look to. I needed to find everybody who was in that program, all the upperclassmen, and say thank you. And when I think about Celebrate, I realized that was actually the genesis of what this is now. Me finding folks who have inspired me and have changed me in some way and saying thank you to them. A few years later, I'm living in New York City. And I truly, Kelley, had this divine inspiration to begin this interview platform where I sit down with some of those people and I listen to them talk about some of the inspirational moments in their life, some of those transformative moments for them. And what I've found that, 10 years later, still doing these Celebrate interviews, thank God, is that this space has also become a healing space. A space for the divine sacred, a space for processing, a space for love and joy and all the things. And this season in particular, 2022, as you know, we're pulling through this whole thing, this pandemic, this global pandemic. I made a personal commitment to just show up, and start seeing shows again and just kind of be out there and represent for the people who I consider to be on the front lines, actors on stage, people behind the stage, people still running institutions, all the people working at the grocery stores, even. I mean, everybody, right? And so that was the thing that made me say, pick Celebrate back up. Kelley Nicole Girod. I can't think of my being in New York City as a director without thinking of you. And this is my introduction. This is what I want to say to you, friend. This is why I invited you here. I had been in New York City, this was years ago, all of 3 or 4 weeks. And I was at a rooftop party hosted by my dear friend Nakia Mathis and Cara Patterson and Cheney Waits and Christine Williams. And they had done this real cute little rooftop situation. And I remember meeting Radha Blank there, playwright Radha Blank. And actually, I think about it, this was actually maybe not a few weeks after my arrival in New York City. It was actually a few months because it was like summertime, because I came in December, but it was like getting warm outside. And Radha, she just casually asked me, who are you and what do you do? And I was like, well, my name's L.A. and I'm a director. And she said, oh, interesting. And I said, yeah, She said, do you know Kelley Nicole Girod at the Fire This Time Festival? And do you know Garlia Cornelia Jones at Blackboard Plays? And I said, no, I don't. And she said, you should. And she said, here's my email. Email me. And when you do, I will send you their contact information.
Oh, I love that.
And I took both y'all's emails, you and Garlia's, sent you both a note, and ended up meeting both of you. And the rest is history. But here's the thing that I want to say to you, Kelley, is that, hey, God, when I met with you, I remember feeling so, and I was so young, y'all. Y'all got to understand. So young. I remember feeling so seen and felt and understood by something in you that understood something in me. And you not only gave me an opportunity to direct in the Fire This Time Festival, which was the second season, I think that was. Forgive me in my timeline. I mean, you know, y'all, this is a long time ago. And I got to meet Jesse Cameron Alec and directed one of his plays, which was like my first production in New York City, a 10-minute gorgeous production.
Jared Joseph.
And directed Jared Joseph and Chauncey, I think Gilbert was his name, in this stunning piece that Jesse Cameron wrote. But you, oh Kelley, and I'm gonna move on, y'all. I remember saying to you, Kelley, and I was so young, child, and I know I made mistakes, and you were just like, child, let me just pray for this child. But I remember saying, Kelley, I want to start like a salon series for young directors like myself to just dig into plays and meet playwrights. And oh God, Kelley. I don't know how you knew. I don't know what was in you that made you say, yes, child. All right, whatever. Let me talk to these folks over at Horse Trade. Let me just whatever. And we put together the Black Director Studio. And that's how I was able to reach out and meet people like Jerome A. Parker, whose play I directed in the third season of The Fire This Time. That's how I was able to connect with Marcus Gardley and Dominique Morisseau. And I did a reading of Oni Faida Lampley's Tough Titty, you know, and I worked with actors like Yvonne Orji and Nakia Mathis. And that was all because you gave me space, Kelley. You gave me space. You said, sure. And I was fucking up. I don't know what I was doing. I was just like, let's just do something. But you were like, let me give this child some space. And you gave me these incredible opportunities. And I think I even did like a whole talk back interview with Nicole Parker at the Horse Trade Theater.
You did.
I did. I was doing. You let me be me, Kelley. You let me be me. You let me do what I needed to do as much as I was finding myself and finding my footing. And I also have to say, y'all, that like, that was also crucial and pivotal for me because it was my first real introduction into new work. Because I had come from Alabama State where we were doing Phaedra, and I had come directly from Kenny Leon in Atlanta where we were doing gorgeous classics like Blues for an Alabama Sky and Miss Evers Boys. But when I got here, it was like, no, there's a thing about working in the room with a playwright called working with a playwright, building a thing. And so all of that, Kelley, you helped me step into, you gave me those opportunities, not to mention you are a legendary producer. Because you've not only done that for me, there are a million people in this city who can say the same thing. There are hundreds of people who I know have a Kelley Nicole Girod Fire This Time story. You've done that. That makes you a legend, sister. You created a space, the legendary, the Fire This Time Festival, that celebrates early career playwrights and all of the diversity of their voices and our voices. And you say, come in, create a thing, and therefore you're giving young directors opportunities, young actors, all these people, as we were just talking about, who we all came up together. That's because you created a platform, Kelley. You did that. You did that. And I'm going to celebrate you and love you forever, not just for what you've done for me, but what you've done for so many people. That's what makes you a legend. You're also a gorgeous playwright, a wonderful human. I won't even get into your humanity. I'll let you tell us a little bit about that today. But like, so Kelley, I can go on, child. I can go on and on about how much you mean to me, how grateful I am for you, and the tie into, you know, all of these experiences. I mean, not to mention, I used to go to the Fire This Time like it was Christmas, child. I didn't miss it, honey. I was there. I got to see some of the most extraordinary performances and productions. I remember Caesar directed Angelica's piece, directed The Dog Meat Out of It. I remember Jocelyn Bio's piece. Pernell Walker was in it. I remember Christine Jean Chambers. Hey, God, hallelujah. Christine. You might have introduced me to Christine. And she did my first headshots. God rest her soul. And I remember interviewing her during that headshot session. That woman was something else. I was so young. And I remember asking her, I said, Christine, I said, how old are you? And she said, I just turned 33. And I said, and I was so young, y'all. And I said, how does that feel to be 33? And I'll never forget for as long as I live. She said, it feels great. And I said, what feels great about it? And she said, because you just know what you want. You just get right to it. You're not pretending. You're not whatever. And she went on and on in only in the way that she could, while taking my pictures.
That's
and
what
I
made
remember
her such a good photographer.
That's what made her such
really
good.
Getting into
yes,
talking. As you were conversating, she would capture you, and
she would capture you in your true essence. And I was being my true little self. And I always tell people that moment in that conversation and that person made me want to turn 30. I was 24 at the time. And I felt like I was rushing to get to 30 because of what she had told me about being in her 30s anyway. Thank you. And I believe it's possible that maybe you made that connection. So listen, going on and on and on. I love you, Kelley Nicole Girod. I celebrate you every day. And I'm going to love on you a lot more in this conversation. But that is all just a little bit about why I'm like freaking out that you even said yes to having this conversation with me and let me love on you and celebrate you in this particular way.
LA, of course. I mean, look, first of all, I want to uplift you for your wisdom in creating a platform where called Celebrate, and about going back and saying, here was somebody who made a difference in my life. I thank you for doing that. I mean, I think one of the reasons why the Fire This Time works so well is because we pay forward gratitude and we pay forward love, and we prioritize community. And it's so funny, I mean, I am a very big believer in paying things forward. Someone said yes to me, and so I felt like it is my duty to say yes to other people. But the other thing I want to say to you, LA, is that when you did first, I distinctly remember you when I first met you, because you were so hard to miss. I mean, you were so fashionable. I remember you were wearing this black jacket outfit. You had this, you used to wear these bracelets, and they were almost like, they like wrapped around your arm. You had like this awesome like box fade. You just looked, you were flawless. You were so, and I remember saying, I was commenting, I was like, oh my God, I love that bracelet. You were just so flawless. And I think it is so rare to see somebody your age who was so focused and had such a specific vision. And so it's funny because, you have say things like, you didn't make any mistakes, LA. And the one thing that I'll say is that, like, I only have become the producer I've become because we all made space for each other to make mistakes together.
That's right.
Like I say to my daughters, I'm just like, when you get something wrong, that's just telling you what you have to practice. It's a gauge telling you, this is, you just got to spend a little bit more time on it.
Totally. Absolutely.
And we all gave each other the space to do that, and I remember, and in some ways I remember feeling like, oh gosh, like LA is so much bigger than this space that I can give him, because I remember you doing that reading and you were just like, and Kelley, we're going to have this, and we're going to have some choreographers, and we're going to have this. And I was just like, LA so knows what he wants. He knows what he wants. And I'm like, and I got this little black box. It's funny, you used to call it the penthouse.
The penthouse, right, exactly.
And you had to walk all the way up those steps.
All the way up those steps.
And I remember thinking, like, I was like, this is gonna be a really good starting space for LA, but he is going to fly. He is gonna need like the world stage, because your ideas were just so big. And I just so loved that and appreciated that. And in my just naivete, I was like the I can say yes and I can give a space, and like and everything else I was kind of like, learning as we went. But I love that this period of reflecting on that, and how we were all so young together, and
yes, we were.
and all just and really prioritizing community. I really want to uplift and thank you for celebrating Christine and saying Christine's name. That's hard. That's a hard one, Malay.
That's a hard one. Yeah. A
very hard one. And the one thing that I can say is that I made a vow that wherever I go, Christine will come with me.
That's it.
And so the anthology we just put together, our first anthology, I think what was so significant about it, aside from seeing all of our names and all of our history, between these two book pages and all of that, and which you're listed in there, your whole history, you're in it for 2 years in a row. Was the acknowledgements of that book, and being able to put Christine and Siddiqui in that book, and say, those are the first names you read when you open this book.
Yes.
Because this is what we're about.
Yes.
Part of this time, that is what we're about.
Yes.
Family.
Yes.
And in fact, and it's so interesting, I would love to, I'm so curious about, you and how you mentor now, because I can imagine that there are so many, young directors who look up to you and, and are want to get, guidance from L.A. Williams. I certainly would. I still want to get guidance from L.A. Williams. But I'd love to just get your take on this. But for so many years, when I've mentored young playwrights and young directors who get sent to me, and I say to them, I'm like, look, invest in the people, invest in your community. You could go all the way here,
absolutely,
come back,
absolutely.
Your career trajectory is going to be like this. But if you're unkind, if you're not generous, you cannot be successful, because the success relies on your community. Your community of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, literally exactly the same. I tell young folks that all the time. And I also tell my students and mentees and young directors who come to me, kind of give them almost a similar path that I took, which is like, don't be afraid to go into these smaller spaces and like what I used to call the underground, like go underground and get in community, do the blackboards, do the fire this time, because that's where everybody that you will need to know are, that's where they will be, and y'all will rise together, right? So don't be looking for Broadway automatically. Remember that there are other things going on where the real stuff is happening, where the real people are. Someone told me, I forget exactly who it was, but like I always also tell my students and mentees, enjoy this emerging phase. Liesl Tommy told me that a long time ago. She said, enjoy being emerging. Someone else also told me, I think it was Dominique Morisseau, who said something like, I basically reiterate a lot of the wisdom that I was given to young folks, but Dominique said something like, plant seeds. Think of yourself as a gardener, plant seeds everywhere. Wait for them to bloom, wait for it to grow. And she said something about, it was Dominique, she's so brilliant. She said, LA, was crying one day at a cafe. And she was like, really, and this is the main thing that I say to young people, find your generation and your generation of community and stick with them. Because what Dominique said, and I don't want to mess this up, but she said, LA, a lot of people reach out to me for things, but I have people that I came up with who I still have promises to. So find your community, stay with them. So I say so many different things, but those are the things that come up right now. And I thank God for Dominique. I thank God for you. I thank God for Garlia. I thank God for all these folks who, as you said so beautifully, Kelley, we came up together. We were young together. Y'all ain't 55 years older than me. You know, like if I was 22, you was 21. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's not like, but we were rising together. We were practicing together. We were failing together. We were winning together. And so the main thing that I find myself saying to young folks all the time is like, don't just look to Broadway or, you know, off Broadway or blah, blah, blah. Look everywhere, get involved everywhere. And it's a fine line between saying yes to everything, which I think, you know, that was a part of my path. I was like, what y'all need me, what y'all want me to do? But you also, as I tell people, have to have a vision. You have to have an idea of what you want to do and all of those things, right? So, and what you're saying about community and kindness is so real, obviously. I mean, you know, and being able to forgive each other too, and give each other grace. And give each other grace. Word there with the grace. You know what I mean? It's the grace. It's the grace. Because that's the thing, right? Like, I could be in my feelings about something from 20 years ago. You could be in your feelings. But it's the wherewithal and the awareness to say, you know what? We were coming up together. We were all hustling. We were all trying and figuring out what everything meant. And grace and healing and gratitude is not just go work with your people. It's have grace.
Amen. And I'm so glad we're so in sync today. Because it's funny, as I was reflecting, like, you know, preparing for this, you know, it's just like it was like you took me back. Like, I mean, I was really thinking about, like, you know, and you know, and the thing is that I was just like, wow, I'm like, you know, I recently made my 40th birthday, and I was saying to my husband, I was like, everybody at the table who was with me at the table, I said, I think that I've gotten into serious arguments with everyone at this table, and it has brought us all closer together, and I've gotten into serious forgiveness and serious grace with everyone, and I'm like, and such is life.
And such is life,
as it should be. You know, we are in an intense industry. What we have chosen is not an easy thing to do, and there's a lot of pressure, and I don't know. I personally have not been on any production where there wasn't tension that had to be run. The thing I think that I appreciate about being a producer now is that I know how to diffuse that, because I will stop and I'll say, okay, Kelley, like, what is your participation in this, and how can you look at yourself, as opposed to when you're 20 something years old and somebody's going off about something that you think they shouldn't be going off about.
Exactly.
It's all about what you think.
It's all about what you think. Yeah.
So-and-so said they need this particular sofa. I need to get so-and-so that sofa.
That's right.
I need to listen to them.
That's right.
And if I can't get them the sofa, I need to sit down and say, I know that this is important to you. I can't get this thing. Can we talk about this together? And that is what I didn't have as a young producer that I have now, you know, is the ability to say, here's where it's me, and here's where it's this, and how do I resolve it? At the end of the day, I'm like, it's just a sofa.
It's just a sofa. It's just a sofa. It's just a sofa. I love that. Kelley, I love that. Listen, thank you. Thank you for all of this and this sort of really beautiful, rich opening to this conversation that I want to have with you. I just appreciate all of it. And yeah, the only other thing that's on the tip of my tongue that I want to say is that in sitting in my own self-reflection these past couple of years and every day, you know, I had to also remember, and you helped me to affirm this part of myself, that not only am I a director, but I have always been a full-on producer. So when I hear you talk about how I arrived in the city and how I came across you, you know, that was me full on, you know, also being a producer. And I get that note a lot from producers when I'm a director. They're like, you know, you also think like a producer. And so anyway, I just want to just celebrate that and say thank you again for giving me the space to be that as well. Anyway, let's move on, because I can go on with you, Kelley, and I just love you. The way I like to start these Celebrate conversations off is by celebrating the day you were born. And that idea is meant to have you take us back to wherever you want us to go, however far back you want us to go. And you can talk to us about your birth story. You can talk to us about earliest memory, or young life growing up. But just tell us whatever you want us to know about, like, young Kelley.
Um, young Kelley. So, I mean, and you know, anybody who knows me already knows, like, I am Louisiana. Black Cajun Creole, French speaking, fried food, Creole food eating, yeah. And so much of my upbringing, you know, it was a lush upbringing, LA. I mean, just the physical landscape of a place like Louisiana, the greenness, the heat, the humidity, you know, being outside all day in the summer, you know, the celebration of life. You know, I remember, you know, growing up with Mardi Gras parades in school. You know, that was such a part of our upbringing. I have 9 siblings, and so, you know, growing up in that and really learning the value of relationship, the value of family, the value of having to work together. And, you know, there is, you know, family is such a big thing for me and always has been. And I think it's honestly, if I had to say that there's one thing that influences me as a producer the most, it is it's growing up in a big family and really wanting to always recreate that feeling, you know, of people coming into a home, being taken care of, feeling that they're taken care of, really and truly feeling like family, you know. And I mean, I could go on and on and on, but you know, my Louisiana upbringing is what led me to theater and what led me to be a writer, because I wanted to recapture all of that magic, you know, and share it. And so,
God, I love that.
Those are the things that immediately come to me.
Oh my God, I love that, Kelley. And I totally felt like family the first moment I met you, and you are so Louisiana through and through. Home and home. And that's one of the main things that I remember learning about you first. And then also you ooze it. And I love that. So to hear you talk about it is just great. So 9 siblings. Ooh, child. Did you, I don't know why this is important, but I'm curious, where do you fall in the 9?
Number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5. And it's funny because I'm right in the middle. And my brother, right under me, my brother John, you may have met John, LA. My brother John, we're Irish twins.
Oh.
And we are the only artist in the family. And so it's so true what they say about the birth order, because like everybody else kind of like went to very practical fields, and then me and John just kind of flew under the radar and did our own thing, because he went to NYU's film school.
Oh, nice.
And then I came up here for theater.
Yeah. God, I love that. I knew that was important for some reason. I knew that was an important question to ask. So when did you, Kelley, where in Louisiana did you grow up? And can you talk a little bit more about, well, you've already touched it, but just a little bit more about that area, right? That town or that city, and how it influenced life at that time.
Sure, yeah. I mean, so I grew up in Baton Rouge, which is, you know, Baton Rouge is a university town. It's LSU is there. LSU, Southern, you know, obviously, you know, LSU football, like all of the sports kind of dominate, you know. And I mostly grew up in a mostly like majority white setting. We went to, you know, all white schools, our church parish, because I'm Catholic, and that's another big thing for me. And it was very, if I had to say that there was, I think the weirdness of being, of everything kind of being compartmentalized, because down south, as you know this, LA, and it might be different actually in the, you know, where, you know, with the Southern experience you had, but the South is so compartmentalized. So in so many ways you felt like, okay, like when I'm with my family, I'm this way. When I'm at school, I'm this way. You know, when I'm with my extended family, I'm this way. And I think particularly, you know, being someone of a very a background that just like it was the type of thing where it's like, you know, you tell somebody you're Black and it's like, and that's not enough. Okay, but what are you actually? It was such a question that was overwhelmed my identity. That it actually, I think it motivated me to find my own Blackness. It motivated me to find like, okay, so what is that thing, you know, like and so that's my best description of a place like, you know, Baton Rouge and all its complexity, because you know, also being like in you know, meeting very kind white people who were also very specific about making sure they don't live around you or hang out with you, and still call Black people the N-word, but at the same time were like very kind Southerners. So there was just this, and it's so hard to describe, which is again why I write. Because the South, and I think particularly a place like Baton Rouge, is so complex.
Absolutely. And were there, you mentioned growing up around mostly white folks, where were the other Black folks? And were there a lot of other Black Creole folks like yourself?
They were, but we were in a place. So Baton Rouge is a very odd place because, so it's the capital of Louisiana. And because it's mostly, I would say it doesn't necessarily have its own character in the way New Orleans does, or the way Lafayette does, or even Shreveport. So, you know, both of my parents are from, you know, what you would call Acadiana, which is St. Martinville, Lafayette, places like that going out towards Texas that still speak French. My parents' first language is French. So Baton Rouge kind of doesn't have its own character, and it's a very segregated place. And so I would say the other Black people were my siblings and my extended family. And so when we saw my family, we would go to Lafayette, or they would come. And it wasn't until I got to LSU that I really started to, I was very much in a bubble for a long time. And when I got to LSU and I really expanded, and that's for me where the idea that theater could be a thing that you pursue really opened up for me, because I met my mentor at the time, Femi Yuba, who the playwright from Nigeria, who had grown up with Wole Soyinka. So when I encountered Death and the King's Horseman, and it blew my mind, and then everything around me just kind of opened up, but I didn't have you know, access to that in a real way. And you know, I think it's so interesting, you know, it's funny, you know, you asked like, you know, where were the other Black people? And it was something that, you know, when you grow up in and it's funny because I think that most, when you grow up with an experience that, or with an identity that's not readily definable, everybody's suspicious of you. So it's not even as if like you know, it's like there was always you're not Black enough to be Black, but you're not white enough to be white. And so I think the reason why my siblings and I formed such a good bond is because we felt like we really only had each other. You know? And I think like, you know, the thing that you learn, or that I've learned as I get older, is that we were all suspicious of each other for no reason. These are the things that we learned, right?
Right. Yes.
We all learned to be suspicious of each other.
That's right.
And it was not, and it wasn't necessary. Nope. There was no hostility, you know, and this is, again, so the creation of the fire this time, like it's every experience on the spectrum of Blackness, and we were not hostile towards each other. There was not ever one person who ever said, Kelley, you're actually not Black enough to be doing
right. Exactly. Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the dramaturgy of it all. Kelley, I'm curious, you've already kind of skipped to LSU, which we'll get to in a few seconds, but I want to know, was there a moment in your early life as a kid did you do school plays? When did you know you were an artist? You talk about you and your brother being the sort of the two in the middle who chose that. Were you a writer as a very young person, or did you not write
Oh
your first,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
I mean, having that many siblings, I mean, I was always writing plays and getting them to be in the plays and directing the plays and choreographing everybody. And it was always a big thing.
Yeah.
And it was just something I did. And I just thought, oh, this was fun. And again,
Yeah.
it's like, it wasn't until I was at LSU that it clicked to me like, oh my God, that's an actual
That's what I've been doing. Yeah.
That you can do. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that. It's almost like how my sister and I and my cousins, we all used to play school. Right.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I was always the teacher and being like, line up everybody. We're going to teach a lesson.
I can see that, LA.
Yeah, totally. And I was totally like directing situations and also teaching. But the other thing is that you just made me think about, Kelley, is like, because I was going to ask you, you said you've been doing it for a while. As a kid, you did a lot of it. Did you know what you were doing? And it sounds like you were just doing you and doing the thing. And then one day you realize it's a thing. I love that. So did you go to high school? Like, did you go to were there performing arts high schools in Baton Rouge? Did you go to it, or?
There were, I did not go to those. I went to, my parents felt very strongly about putting us in Catholic school. So we all received a Catholic school education.
Mm-hmm.
There certainly were performing arts schools that had much more focus on the performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's very funny. And here's where, I'm going to take it back a little bit, LA. Both of my parents, I'm only one generation from the cotton fields. My mother worked in the cotton field. She grew up very, very, very poor in rural Louisiana. And and for her and her siblings, there were really two choices. There was, you go to the convent, are you go into priesthood, or you you kind of like you become a parent. I don't know that there were that many options for them. My father, on the other hand, was able to integrate an all-white high school and graduate and make his way to medical school. So I think that for them, a practical education, a white education, was very important to them. And this is kind of the age-old story, right? I mean, it's like upward mobility is equated with whiteness.
Yep.
I think about past generations who didn't have necessarily especially in the South, the vocabulary to even say like, no, this is what I want. You kind of do what you have to do.
That's right. Yeah.
And so for us, that meant Catholic education, or private school education, white education, and doing something practical. You can do law, or you can do medicine. So that's why I think when I got to LSU, the world exploded for me on so many different levels. So many different, on the creative, just on the different kinds of people I was encountering. So yeah.
Kelley, that's so good. Thank you for that. The one generation away, the all of that truth you just shared in history. Thank you. Let's talk about LSU. I'm curious to hear you say like what you think was the sort of the push into this big explosion of life and creativity. Like, did you see a show? Did you meet someone? Did you what was the beginning? How did everything begin to sort of crumble and boil up for you before it exploded?
For sure. Yeah. I just on a whim took a theater class with Femi Yuba. And we were reading African playwrights, and that's where I encountered Wole Soyinka, The Trial of Didon Kamathi, plays of Aimé Césaire, Derek Walcott. It sounds like a really stupid thing to say, LA, but I did not know those worlds existed. I was so ignorant to the diaspora.
Yeah, I mean, me too. All of us. Yeah, I mean, not all of us, but some of, yeah,
You know,
I believe that.
and which and I think that there's something to be said. I was because of the work that I'm doing at the Apollo, I was talking to my senior producer yesterday after I'd gone on a practice walk, because we're going to be doing work with Kamau Ware, who does these Black Gotham tours, who like takes us around Harlem and kind of deconstructs the things that we think we know about spaces. And I was just saying to Laura, I was like, Laura, I said, this doesn't feel like a time of enlightenment. It feels like a time of excavation leading to enlightenment. Because I said, for all I thought, because when I did start to consume Black history and Black culture and all of this, I would say that I know so much, and yet there's still so much I don't know, LA.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's still so much that I don't know. And I'm like, and this to me is an incredible moment. We're excavating and we're finding the things under that. Like that is where all the beauty and the truth of progress lies. Yes.
Absolutely. So it was this class that you took, and what would you say was the sort of culminating moment or experience for you at LSU that kind of said, sent you on the path that you've been on? I mean, what was that? What was the...
Oh, that's a really good question, LA. I had wanted, I think I was at some point I decided I wanted to be pre-law, and I wanted to be pre-law because I really wanted to be an advocate. I either wanted to be a children's advocate, or I wanted to be a civil rights advocate, because I'd been doing a lot of volunteer work, and education system in Louisiana, I'm not talking down about it because it's not anything that people don't know, but it is very lacking, and it is very, like most education in this country, resources are divided along racial lines. I mean, you can say class lines, but class and race are many times interchangeable there. And and just the children, being around the children. So I was working at a school where it was majority Black children, and I loved being with the kids so much, and we were doing a play together. They're putting on plays, and I was just like, and I just couldn't imagine that, why isn't there more for them? Why isn't there more for us? Like it opened my eyes to the disparity in things. And I think that I said to myself, like, oh, I could be a lawyer, but there's a lot of those. And I was so moved by art, and I was so moved by what I had read, and I was so moved by the fact that of what art is able to do in terms of making us even see somebody else differently, because it had happened to me. I had seen all of this stuff. I was encountering people's real humanity, and I was and that, I think, was the thing for me, that I was like, this is it. Like, this is it for me. Like, I can put other people's stories on the stage and make other people aware of it. And so there was no turning back after that, to my parents' at first disappointment, because they were just like, oh my God, Kelley, we can't believe you were going to do law school and you're a straight A student, and now you're going to do this. Why? And I was just like, just trust me. But I was also, again, I was the middle child, and I was like, and you guys have plenty of doctors and whatever, so,
you got what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh God, I love that, Kelley. I love that so very much. What happened after LSU? So let me clarify. What did you actually major in at LSU? What was your final major? English.
Yeah.
English. Got it.
With a minor in African American studies.
I'm curious, did they have an undergraduate theater program that you could have majored in, or no?
Not as a playwright.
Not as a playwright.
They have an undergraduate acting and a grad acting. Only way for me to do anything as a playwright was to be an English lit major.
Got it.
And I think that I was probably the only playwriting student in the entire university. So I was really, and there wasn't necessarily a way for me to do that. So that's how I was mentored by Femi, because Femi would kind of oversee my writing and everything like that. So,
And in the context of your full journey, when did you know you were a playwright? Was it at LSU, or had you declared that for yourself prior to LSU or after LSU?
No, it was while I was at LSU, and under Femi's direction, I wrote my first play, Lessons of the Trash Gang, which was, I was taking a very great African-American professor, Dr. Moore at LSU. I was taking his class and I was just blown away. And there was all of these things that I was learning that we just never learned. Like, growing up in the South, African-American history is this, it's a paragraph. And then you read Uncle Tom's Cabin and Huckleberry Finn, which I refused to read.
Exactly.
I was like, not because I didn't want to read the books, but because it wasn't being taught in the proper context.
Right.
And all that was happening was people were making fun of it. So I was just like, you know what? That was my protest. I got an F.
Yes.
And so I remember there was something that just really struck me when, Dr. Moore, when we were talking about the kind of social structures of enslaved Africans at the time. And he said, there was this band of women called trash gangs, and they were pregnant women who were too old to work, and then very young girls. And their job was to go around the plantation and pick up trash. And what it really turned into was a way of the older women socializing the young girls to basically say to them, this is going to be your life. This is what you need to look out for. Like, I mean, can you imagine, like, somebody, we think now about the conversations that mothers have to have with their Black children and with their Black boys. Can you imagine being in that situation and having to say, prepare yourself for rape, prepare yourself for sexual assault? And that got me. It haunted me, LA. And I wrote a play about it. So it was about several, generations. And it was funny. There was one time in the, the course of doing The Fire This Time, Camille Darby said this. She was like, she was like, I don't know any Black playwright who hasn't written that play. We all have to deal with slavery. We all have to deal with that history. So we've all written a play that deals with that, And I think what's so lovely is that, like, we can see that now as the play that we kind of that we've wanted to write to exercise that, but it is not like, we're not defined by writing the play that's helping all of America deal with that happened.
Right.
Because we want to have room to write about being a nerd.
That's
right.
Write
about, sci-fi.
That's right.
Whatever it is we are,
Whatever it is we are. Ooh, shout out and celebrate Camille Darby, the brilliant Camille Darby, the beautiful Camille Darby. I love that woman. What a beautiful artist. Yeah. Another person who I met through the Fire This Time Festival. I mean, thank you for speaking her name. Thank you for that, Kelley. That's so juicy. Thank you for indulging me. My brain is always like, but wait, I have a couple more things. And thank you for that. What happened after LSU? Did you go back home? Did you get a job somewhere? Did you go out of town? What did you do?
No, so I got an offer to start grad school in the literary department program at LSU, and it just wasn't the right thing. No, I just knew that it wasn't right for me. So I took that year off. I produced Lessons of the Trash Gang in Baton Rouge. And I mean, it was like, if there was ever a sign saying, like, pointing to this is the right direction, I mean, that thing was sold out. And it wasn't an easy play to watch. It was not. I mean, people came from, I remember my grandmother coming all the way from Denham Springs, being in a wheelchair, and everybody just, I think as an artist, and we probably all still feel this on some level, you never know how your work is going to be received.
Totally.
It's always nerve-wracking.
Totally.
You don't know. And in that theater space, white and Black people alike sat in that theater space in a very Southern town and watched this play about 3 generations of Black women in slavery and rape, and got involved in a conversation. And that's when I was like, oh shit, can I curse on you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like, this is the thing that I've got to do. So I was so encouraged by that. And then I spent that year just kind of working at my dad's office. My father's a physician, and applying to grad schools, and just knew that if I was going to do this theater thing, I had to be in New York. So I actually had gotten some offers from other schools, full scholarship, which now I'm just like,
exactly.
But I was like, I need to be in New York.
New York, yeah.
So I ended up at Columbia with Jocelyn Bio. And that was that. And being, and that was an education. That was a real education on so many different levels. And I think it just further solidified who I was and who I wanted to be. And I think because, at the time, Jocelyn and I felt such a lack of community. We wanted to know where all the Black playwrights were. We wanted someone who was going to understand what we were trying to dig into. Just to give you an example of what we're up against, and I'm not going to name the teacher's name, but there was a professor who said openly, she was like, well, because rap isn't real music. It's not real art. That's the type of stuff that we were dealing with. You have teachers like that who are saying things like that. How can they support the voice?
How can they?
It's not up to you to determine whether it's not art, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that when I came out, I was very, very, very bruised. And my solution to that was to make my own shit. And so there was a lot of things that came together to birth the fire this time. But one of them was like, I'm going to find this community. I remember at the time, like I'd been hearing about Marcus Garley and Katori Hall and blah, blah, and all these people. And I'm like, I want to meet them. How do I get all of us in a room? I somehow got all of their email addresses. To this day, I don't even know how.
The universe.
And I cold emailed LA.
Yes.
Everybody. And this was like right before Katori blew up with the Mountain Top.
Right. Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, let's do it.
Whoo, Kelley, so much is clicking for me right now. 2 seconds. You mentioned something a few seconds ago about you produced Lessons of the Trash Women yourself. And so my question is, did you know what producing was? How did you know? Were you just like, I'm gonna put it together, and that's what you thought of as producing, and that's because that is what it's producing is? Or like, how did you know? How did you have the wherewithal to produce? When did you declare yourself as did you know you were a producer before that or after that or during it, or not even until years later?
Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing. I just knew. So having grown up in such a big family where the only way that we could get anything done was that we had to be organized. Literally my parents, like their organization skills were just off the chain. And I had spent many a summer taking care of babies, whether that was my own little brothers or nieces and nephews, and knew that like, okay, you have to structure them. You have to structure your day, and this is how everything has to happen. So I knew how to organize. And at its very most basic level, producing is organizing.
That's right.
And having a timeline and saying this is what has to happen at this time.
That's right. Absolutely.
And so that's really what I did. And also, having I will say that growing up in my father's medical practice was so invaluable to me because I learned how to be around people, and I learned my dad's patients are just so wonderful. They would come in and, and they said, you talk about, oh, how's your day? And like, and all of these things. And so you learn to listen to people. You learn to really appreciate people. And so I think there's two things that are very important to me as a producer, being able to listen and just being able to organize. And, and it's, it's funny, LA, because you asked me when I really considered myself a producer. And the fact of the matter is even at the beginning of this session, when you were saying, about me being a producer and other people seeing me as a producer, I still have such an imposter syndrome. I'm like, as a producer, it took me a long time to utter the words, I'm a producer. Because, and I think that it's just, and it's there, I didn't go through a formal education to be a producer. I kind of just, followed whatever was being put in front of me and selfishly followed the things that I was, looking for. So in some ways to hear that, it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. I guess I am, but I really just organize people.
Absolutely. I have to tell you that you First of all, thank you for being honest about how you feel around that word. And second of all, and perhaps most importantly, Kelley, you just defined, in my opinion, exactly what producing is. Following a thing selfishly, organizing, listening. That's what it is. And I want to just say this, and I'm about to curse because I'm getting excited. I'm so fucking grateful you didn't have a formal education as a producer. First of all, you had the best education as a producer growing up in a house with 8 other siblings. Number one, okay? And this word formal bothers me and gets me excited because it's that kind of thinking and that kind of shit that we've all been programmed to believe that keeps us from living in our fullness and our truth as producers, as writers and directors. We don't need I don't have a master's degree in directing, and I'm a full-blown director, and I've been directing my whole life. I don't have a master's degree in producing, and I'm producing right now as we speak, right? Because we have all of that in us. There are 2-year-olds who are producers, but somebody's going to tell them you need a formal education for it, and then they're going to not be it. And I know you follow, you know what I mean? Amen. So thank you for sharing that so that I can say what I'm saying now, which is, please, Kelley, you are a legendary producer. And as I sit here and listen to you in this moment, it's all clicking. It's making sense. When you said you were number 5 of 9, I was like, all right, I understand now. I understand how you can put together the Fire This Time Festival. When you talk about your work at LSU and with your mentor and the material you were exposed to, the Fire This Time makes sense. It's all clicking. So I hear you, sister, and I know exactly what you mean about that imposter syndrome. And I'm also just adding to that by saying, like, child, Kelley, I would even almost go as far as to say, and it's funny because right before you said what you just said, I was going to say to you, now that I'm listening and it's all clicking, you were almost like producing an example of a producer to me, you know, because I came to this city as a producer. When I look back, I said this earlier, when I look back at my life, LA, I've been producing. I did all kinds of things in undergrad. I made that department run. Anybody who went to school with me can tell you that. But like, and you saw the producer in you, the organizer and listener in you saw the organizer and listener in me and the curator in me. And I believe that somewhere, that's why you were like, let me give this child some space, you know? And so, anyway, Kelley, sorry for that sermon, but I just wanted to please.
Thank you for it. Please don't ever apologize.
Yeah, take that in, because I can't think, when I think of producers, legendary producers, and I don't just talk. I ain't got time to be on here lying to nobody for nothing. I think of you. I think of Garlia. I think of people who have created spaces that have changed the game. Right. And I'm so glad that you didn't have a formal education around that, because you probably would have been doing some other shit that is not nearly as impactful or exciting or even interesting. Kelley, thank you for talking about your time at Columbia and being so honest and, you know, just real about coming out of it feeling bruised. I mean, that's so real. And unfortunately, it's again, an age-old story. Yes. And I love hearing you talk about how that was a part of the push into the Fire This Time. And I also want to just celebrate the fact, and this is what I mean about, like, I'm so glad you and I don't have the formal education around this shit, that you just collected some emails, cold emailed these people, and they said yes, because God was doing what God was going to do. The universe was doing what the universe was going to do. Kelley was doing what Kelley was going to do. You don't need any of that. It's proof of that, right? You don't need a master's in producing, obviously. And that's exactly how you and I met.
Yep.
Talking to Rada and being like, give me the end. She said, email me. And Rada don't remember any of this. That's funny. I saw her last night. And I brought up this old story, and she was like, how many times is he going to tell me this story? I feel like that's what she was thinking. But Rada said to me a couple years after we met, she said, I didn't think you were going to email me. She said, I remember being like, oh shit, he really emailed me to ask for these people's emails. And I was like, absolutely I did. And it's similar to what you were saying earlier about, like, this child right here, you give LA an inch, she's going to take a mile. Like, you give him space, the whole city.
Which I've like always loved about ULA. And I think it's also one of the things that, like, you know, follow through is so important. It's so important.
It's so important.
I can't tell you how many times, like, so here's the thing. If you ask me for something, I'm going to follow through on it. If I ask you for something, I expect like right then, do it. Just do
That's
it.
right. That's right. That's right.
You know,
That's
because
right.
so often it's like, you know, you're like, oh, I can wait. And I'm just like, and my whole thing is that if I'm right here in front of the computer and you just said, and we just left from coffee and you said, oh, email me before you walk out the door, your phone's gonna ding.
Exactly. It's gonna ding. It's gonna ding. It's gonna ding. And that is the art of producing. That is the art of everything that we're talking about. And so I celebrate that, and I love that so much. Kelley, let's talk about the Fire This Time Festival. And there's really nothing, I don't really have a question here. We've kind of talked a little bit about the genesis of it. I just want to carve out a special moment again to say thank you, Kelley. And really, really celebrate you for the work that you continue to do with this organization. And I know how much it has impacted me, not only as an artist, not just as an artist and a sort of practitioner, but also as an audience member. I've seen some of the very best work in this city at the Fire This Time Festival. I've met everybody I've met there is absolutely brilliant and blows my mind. So we don't even need to go down like, oh my God. So thank you. And I guess my hope or my intention in this moment is to just make sure it don't ever get lost on you, Kelley, you know, what you've done and what you're doing. Like don't let nothing or nobody trick you into believing that you ain't who you are and that you haven't done what you have done. You know, I mean, Kelley, like, don't get it twisted. Don't let nobody lie to you. Watch this episode when you need to. Don't let these folks lie to you, Kelley Girod. Like, you are, I keep saying legendary because I don't have a big enough vocabulary. Like, you have created this thing that has held space for so many visionary artists. You are a visionary artist yourself. You are blessed. Hearing you talk about cold emailing, something else is working in you and through you. Don't let nobody trick you, Kelley. Don't let nobody trick you. And we, you know, I work in the business just like you, and I see people who run these, you know, these larger institutions or, you know, on Broadway, and that's all cute, fine, and dandy. And then there's Kelley Nicole Girod.
Really, I so appreciate that. And, you know, and not even to, you know, it is truly humbling, but I want to take this moment to uplift the Fire This Time team. Artistic director Cesar Williams,
yes,
producer and, you know, creator and facilitator of our New Works program, AJ Muhammad, Julian Hairston, Erez Ziv, who gave us the home that we find ourselves in, and really and truly the artists, the community, LA, because you know, I had an idea and was willing to scrub some toilets and push stuff across the stage, you know, in the first few years. But the way that sustains itself is with a family of artists and a family of team members. And I am really so blessed, you know, that I get the privilege of being able to work with and be in community with Cesar and AJ and Julian and Erez.
Yes.
And these wonderful artists. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, it really is, you know, it's like, it's truly incredible. I mean, we have a real family, and that's like makes the most sense to me. You know, it's funny because I was about to say like, oh gosh, I was like, I could talk to you forever, LA, but I gotta my two little girls, I promised to take them to Legoland today.
Yes,
because they already know it's been a crazy week for mommy. But you know, I just remember it would not be possible for me to be in the arts and to be a mother without the Fire This Time. I used to bring my Penelope and Noel have been passed to every hand on the stage during rehearsals, you know, and I always wanted that. I wanted that to be a space where we can really come as we are as artists.
That's right.
Or with whatever we have. You know, I remember.
That's right. Yes.
And in your year, in Dominique's play, Andrea was acting it, and she just had her twins.
She had twins. I remember that.
Girls were there and
in rehearsal, in the
play
theater
was happening, and you know, and they were. and, as kids do, it's like they were fussing and we went with it.
I remember I was there. Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. I think you're absolutely right. Show up with all of us.
Yeah.
And all that we come with. Absolutely. Listen, in the spirit of wrapping up, I want to, there are 2 quick segments. The first one is, Kelley, in the spirit of getting to know you better and lightheartedness and fun, what are some of your favorite things? What are some of Kelley Girod's favorite things? City, food, pastimes?
Okay. Yeah, food is a big thing for me. I love eating. I love experiencing different types of food. It is, it's the best thing. I do love, I miss my Louisiana food so much because, and you will not, I will have you over at some point. I will fry you some catfish.
Oh my God,
but I cannot
Kelley.
do the gumbo. I've done a roux once, and then I was like, nope. I was like, my mom is gonna have to do this. Freeze this.
Freeze it.
Bits off.
Yes,
that's gonna work.
Yeah,
but
I'll take the fried catfish.
Food is my favorite thing. And and family. You know what? I'm a simple person. I love to hang out. And I think particularly in the past 2 years, that has where I couldn't be with my family in Louisiana, but also me and my girls in lockdown. I love my children. I knew the thing I always wanted in life was to be a mother, and I thank God every single day for them. They are number one. So I love hanging out with my kids and love. And here's where I have to shout out my husband, because my husband was on the COVID wards at the height, not as a patient, as a doctor, at the height of the pandemic. And the past 2 years has, I always had an appreciation for my husband, but I love being with my husband and to appreciate him. So if I had food and family and friends around, I'm beyond blessed. I'm beyond blessed. I don't need.
I love that. 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 Celebrate your husband and everyone in the medical industry, medical field, who has worked beyond anything we will ever imagine, be able to imagine. Thank you. Thank you to your husband and you and your family and everybody. Thank you, God, for these folks. I like to wrap these conversations up by asking 3 questions. The first one being, what does it mean to you to be celebrated?
Ooh. What does it mean to me to be celebrated? To be seen. To be seen.
That's great. I love it. What or who do you celebrate?
Right now, our medical professionals. Our medical professionals who aren't celebrated enough and are really, really working out here in these and really working.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Kelley. Oh, thank you for that. And finally, Kelley, what do you do to celebrate you?
I go to sleep at 8:30 every damn night. That's what. Unless I have an event, you can text me after 8:30, but I will respond at 5 a.m. when I wake up.
Exactly, because I'm asleep. Yes. I'm going to bed.
Yes.
I love that, actually. I love that so much. I was just telling somebody yesterday how good it always feels when I go to sleep early in the evening, and 8:30 for me is very early because I'm a night owl. And then I'm able to wake up early the next morning and have a whole, I just love it all. I love that, Kelley. I love you. I am in deep gratitude and respect and reverence for you and what you do and your work and your presence in this community. I'm just so blessed that you said yes to this conversation so that I could thank you in my way. Kind of what you were saying about the fire this time. Celebrate doesn't work without other folks. I feel so honored that, I was able to sort of have this inspiration to do this, but it only works when y'all say yes, and it allows me to be in my fullness, the fullness of me, when I get to be able to, love on y'all the way I want to. So thank you for that. Thank you for existing. Know that we love you. I love you, Kelley. Like, this community has your back. We are here for you as much as we know you are here for us. So let us know what you need from us. I think that's important, as we talk about right now, especially, but with our leaders like yourself and like me, directors, producers, people who run on, because you do work at the Apollo Theater,
yes.
Know that we have.
And I was just talking about you to my senior producer. So
yeah.
We're definitely going to have some offlines. Okay.
Some offline stuff. So just know, Kelley, we love you and we've got you, and I celebrate you and we celebrate you.
And same, LA. And I mean, look, I again, deeply appreciative, and and more so just for this opportunity to reconnect with you.
Same.
I've been missing you over the years. I've been seeing everything that you were doing, and I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sister. I love you. I'll talk to you again soon.
Love you too.
Have fun at Legoland.
Yeah. I'm sure they're gonna be having a blast.
Yeah, I heard them in the background like, Mama, let's go.
I know. No, they're clocking.
Exactly. Bye, Kelley. See ya.